Hello and welcome to the 30 minutes of heaven we call the D1Baseball Weekend Preview. We're keeping it tight tonight. I am your host, Michael Patrick Rooney, and tonight's episode, as always, brought to us by our good friends at S2 Cognition. S2 Cognition delivers a revolutionary approach to helping athletes understand how in-game decisions impact their performance from youth levels all the way to the pros. I don't know why I decided to, speaking of decisions, to yell into your eardrums right there. However, I am joined by my two favorite tired clowns, the great Aaron J. Pitt, the great Kendall J. Rogers. Gentlemen, good to see you. Happy evening. How we doing?
Hi, Runes.
We're doing awesome.
We're all like, we all feel like tired clowns right now. Like pitch counts are getting up. We've logged a lot of innings. We're just waiting for that second wind, that postseason juice to kick in. When's that kick in, Fitzy? When's that happen?
Oh, any day now, Runes, doesn't it?
Yeah, any day now. Any day now. I'll tell you what does have me excited is Coach Rooney, leader of the fabulous Rune Dogs. We're 20-8 over the last 3 weeks of weekend picks. We've made a lot of ground up.
And I will say that there was carnage. I think the last 2 weeks, but especially this past week, there's a lot of 3 and 7s and 2 and 8 showings here. So you're 7 and 3. Really stands out. I think you and Eric were the only ones, and Shock also went 7 and 3 this week. So we had a couple of good showings this week, while the rest of us were really kind of flailing.
Yeah, Steven Shock out of the cellar, by the way. Looking at you, Shoddy. Come on, Shotgun Spratling. Hey-o.
Perennial cellar dweller, Shotgun Spratling.
Kendall, when are you gonna do your like kind of last second sprint here? You're kind of hanging down with Shoddy and Shock.
I'm only 2 games behind Aaron. I'm a few games behind you.
5
games. I mean, I can make that up. It's gonna be tough, but I can make it up.
You're a sprinter. You just have that big kick at the end.
Yeah, you know me. Known as a sprinter.
That's right. I like it. Oh, very good. All right, boys, let's do it. Let's jump in here. We're going to pick 10 series. We'll just go around the horn. We'll pick one, preview it. The other person just gives a quick player of interest, and we're going to hammer this out. Fitzy, you're leading us off. You're a table setter. What series you want to do?
Yeah, I am a table setter. How about Miami at Louisville? We'll just start at the top of the list here.
Mm-hmm.
Big series in the ACC. Both these teams trying to kind of get themselves into hosting position. Miami is closer to hosting position right now, but they're back to back in the RPI. The difference is Miami's in a better spot in the standings. Louisville is just not healthy, and they've been fighting it. Coming off getting swept at Duke. I was there for the Sunday game, and really like what I saw from Carson Liggett. He's really their best pitcher right now. You wonder at some point if they'll switch up the order there. But right now, he's kind of been their stopgap guy on Sundays. He pitched well this week, and they still couldn't find a way to win. So they're desperate. Louisville, again, like if they want to have any chance to host, this is do or die. So I think it's a big series. I think it's a fun series. And I'm just gonna keep on picking against Miami because those guys, I think they like when I pick against them. They told me as much. So I'm just gonna go ahead and find. That's it. I'll lean into it. We'll take the cards.
I like it. Kendall, player of interest in the series.
I'm going to go with my man, Jack Payton. He returned to the lineup over the weekend against Duke. On Sunday against Duke, he had a home run, and then against Kentucky in a 7-0 win on Tuesday, he had 2 hits, including a home run and 2 RBIs. So sounds like he's healthy, starting to get things back together a little bit offensively. So keep an eye on him. He's had 2 really solid games in a row, and he's obviously a big key for the Cards this weekend to get that series win over the U.
I would say like injuries feel like such a big deal right now, like who's getting healthy, who's not getting healthy. And in this series, Christian Knapczyk may play this weekend. He may not play this weekend. That's really important
big
for Louisville. Really important. Yep, no question. He's a lot.
He's kind of their heart and soul,
Mm-hmm. Agreed. And it just hasn't worked when he hasn't been in there. And then for Miami, I think Carson Liggett, not Carson Liggett for Louisville, but Carson Liggett for Miami, I think he's their best starter. He's not as sexy as Gage Zeal and certainly doesn't have the stuff of Alejandro Rosario, but he is their most consistent guy. And I feel like if I understand it correctly, Liggett is kind of working his pitch count back up. And I don't know if he's back in the weekend rotation, but those are 2 players. Is he back in?
He did this past week. I think he went pitch into the 5th maybe against Georgia
nice.
Tech. But Zeal was great. I think Zeal went like into 8 innings or something, really, really strong start. So that's encouraging for Miami.
Yeah, sure is. I like both teams long term. Kendall, pick another series. Where do you want to go next?
I'll go to the one you're heading to, Texas and TCU. I mean, I think when you look at this series as a whole, Texas was a club a week ago. We had as a pretty easy host. Now all of a sudden they get swept at home by Oklahoma. They drop down to the 37-38 range. TCU's in the 50s. Both teams all of a sudden have very iffy conference records. This is already a rivalry series. This is now a massive series for one team to try to stay in the hosting mix to some degree, and for another team like TCU to just stay in the large mix. I mean, they lose this series, they may be on the outside looking in. They're one of our last 5 teams in this week. So, it'll be really interesting to me when you look at TCU. They're going to start they're going to start freshman Cole Klecker against Lucas Gordon in the series opener, and then they'll probably lean on Luis Rodriguez and some other freshmen as the weekend progresses. I think the big thing for me, real quick, a guy like Cam Brown needs to step up for TCU. He came in the middle of the game last weekend against West Virginia, and I don't think he got out of the inning. I think he gave up like 4 or 5 runs without getting out of the inning. For TCU to make the postseason and for TCU to have a chance to advance in the postseason, like, you can't be relying on guys like Cole Klecker, and that's no disrespect to him. But what you need is your older guys like Cam Brown to step up and do what they should be doing. So keep an eye on Cam Brown this weekend.
Yep. Fitzy, player of interest in this series?
Well, we talked about Lucas Gordon on the first podcast of the week. Right now, he would be your Big 12 pitcher of the year, and he's coming off a really good start at Oklahoma. And I mean, 7 innings, 1 run, and it's like, again, they still found a way to lose that in the bullpen. I mean, it was a pretty close game. It was 2-1, but like, he's been awesome. And I just feel like he gives them such an advantage in the first game of this series. Both these teams coming off sweeps. That first game feels really important, so that things don't continue to snowball. And so I just think that Gordon here is a real important piece. If he can go out there and win this first game for Texas, I think that kind of sets the tone for the series.
Yeah, I would tell you, Kendall, you mentioned it. Clay Matvick and I are getting to do the first 2 games of that series. So talking to the coaches today, Kirk Sarlos just talked about, hey, the key for us, the reason we're going with these freshmen is because the older guys have struggled, and our starting pitching has been so bad at times that it's affecting our offense, which is our carrying strength. And so we just need somebody to, give our offense a chance. Go ahead, Kendall.
Well, I was just going to say, what's really hurt them is not having Luke Savage.
Yes.
That's changed the entire dynamic of their pitching staff. I think if they have Luke Savage, you kind of have that guy that can either start or he can kind of come in the middle of a game if your starter's struggling and give you 4 or 5 innings of solid ball, ball out of the bullpen. So I think Luke Savage being out has really, really hurt them.
Yeah, no question. He's had 2 different stints on the IR, if you will.
Brutal.
He is back now, but he's only thrown 13 innings. And to your point, like, he's back, but he's not
vintage Luke Savage.
Yeah, he's just trying to find his way back into shape, but he is in play. And then Texas kind of has the opposite problem. I feel like they're more worried about their bullpen. The one thing Texas is trying to do is they've got some high-end arms that they feel like if they are going to go deep in the postseason, the guys that can miss bats got to step forward, and they've been inconsistent. So it's almost like Texas's bullpen is my player of interest. TCU's rotation is my player of interest, but man, it's going to be fascinating series. All right, boys, I'm going to do Kentucky at Vanderbilt. And this is interesting because Vandy's coming off of their first blip of the year. They get run off the field by Indiana State midweek. Then they lose that series to Tennessee. They got blown out twice. Their All-American closer, Nick Maldonado, gave up the 1 lead in the 1 game. And then Kentucky, you guys are aware of this, but I was not until a second ago. Kentucky has lost 3 straight series. Kentucky, I feel like, is right now at the point where they're like Boston College, but the SEC version, where it's like, I love their team, but I'm starting to, I can feel those doubts creeping in for me. So, I wouldn't characterize Vandy or Kentucky as explosive offenses. They're efficient offenses. That's an interesting series because we've got 2 teams looking to get back on track. Fitzy, player of interest.
Yeah, I'm Logan Martin. To your point, they need to get back on track. And I'm going to, again, like they need to get more out of Logan Martin than they did against A&M. 2 innings, he walked 5. He couldn't find the zone. Just got to throw more strikes. That's simple, and get them off to a good start there. So that's my player of interest.
KR. Muted. Mute violation.
My bad. I was clicking on my keyboard, and I know how much you guys hate that.
Hashtag tired clown.
Yeah, well, no, not a tired clown. I'm just doing research.
Muted clown.
Hey, you know me, dude. I'll wait until
Next
we
level.
do the picks to do my research.
That's awesome. I like it.
I'm going to cheat. I'm going to go with Vanderbilt's entire rotation because I think if you look back at the Tennessee series, that was their issue. We've talked about it so many times in the last week, but like Tennessee didn't just go rip Vanderbilt's bullpen. They ripped their starters first. And so for me, it's all about Vanderbilt starting pitching. I think they're going to hit, but their starting pitching has got to be better. Kentucky will be unorthodox. A&M, shockingly, handled Kentucky's unorthodox offense pretty well. And we'll see how Vanderbilt does this weekend.
I like it. Fitzy, take us to Series 4. We're pacing for a good 30-minute podcast, boys. I don't want to put pressure on us, but I like our pace right now. Well played.
The pitch clock's been key here.
Yes, pitch timer.
We should totally, moving forward, we should totally have a pitch clock and like the bottom right. It's like a countdown clock.
We'll just copy the around the horn format and just have
I could get that done. I'll talk to Chris Gennaro this week and we'll get that done.
Let's go, CG.
I'm going to go Maryland, Indiana. Big Ten, big showdown. Really first place on the line here. I think Indiana's 9-3 in the league. Maryland is 8-4, 1 game back. Great series here. I mean, two teams that really have won a bunch of series in a row. Terps were our preseason pick. I still think they're the best team in the league, but RPI does not reflect that. They're down there at 60. Indiana's at 11. Indiana is a team that's got a chance to be certainly a host and maybe even a top 8 seed if they can win this series at home. So two offensive teams, I think both these teams, they have a real ace with Sennard for Indiana and Jason Savacool for Maryland, although Savacool is uncharacteristically not great last week against Purdue in a game that they lost, but they bounced back and won that series anyway. So it just feels like this year has been kind of a grind for Maryland. They haven't dominated a lot. They've had a lot of hard fought series, 1-run games. I don't think they've swept a series all year. Maine, I guess they swept Maine early, but that's it. And it's like, it doesn't feel like it's come easy for them, but they're still finding ways to win series. And again, like the RPI isn't there. They really, really need to win this series to kind of solidify their at-large position.
Kendall, player of interest.
I'm going to go with Philip Glasser at Indiana. He was a guy that I saw last year in Round Rock, and I really, really liked him. He had a good weekend offensively that weekend. He played really good defense, and he plays a premium position, and he's had a really nice year for those guys offensively. You're talking about a guy with OPS over 1,000, hitting over 370. So for me, he's a key to the weekend, both offensively and certainly defensively.
I like it. I will say, I want to pick. What's the shortstop for Maryland? Fitzy, Matt Shaw.
Yeah,
did I do that right?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to pick the Indiana pitching because Indiana's pitching is very. They've got Ryan Kraft and Craig Yoho are their 2 moment of truth relievers. They got 2 of those per weekend. Luke Sennard's their 1 legit get deep in the game starter, and then everything else is a volume situation. They're just going to throw volume at it and hope they pick the right pieces on the right day. But I think this is going to be Maryland kind of has a similar problem, lack of depth in the pitching staff, it feels like. So I like your Glasser pick, KR, and I'm going to match it with my man Matt Shaw because I think whatever team wins this series, it's going to have to be the offense that wins it. So, but again, fascinating series for all the reasons Fitzy mentioned. KR, next series.
Hold on. I had to pull it back up.
Kendall's faking something in his eyes so they don't give him a strike penalty right now.
No. So here's the
you
problem.
weren't alert at 10 seconds. You weren't alert at 10 seconds.
Problem. So this is where Aaron and I differ dramatically in more ways than one. I opened up a bunch of tabs and I can't freaking find anything because I've got all these freaking tabs open. So, okay, we're back to normal. I only have 5 tabs open now, Aaron.
That would make me feel like flying without a net. You gotta be able to just fly around. Like you should see it. I've got 5 windows open with all of them with multiple tabs.
I sit there in Omaha and I'll look over just in awe of Aaron and his tabs. By the way,
amazing.
I also went through all my emails today, like customer service emails. I'm down to 5 emails in my inbox.
5.
Yeah, kind of incredible.
Fitzy's
With
down
that
to
said,
75,000.
in that ballpark. Yeah. Go on, Raj. What do you got?
Well, we talked about TCU and Texas. I'm going to stay in the Big 12 and Kansas State and Texas Tech. I mean, this is a really important series for both teams. I mean, Texas Tech's kind of that weird team that, we in the human polls love Texas Tech, but the RPI does not like Texas Tech very much. They're in the mid-60s. So in the conference record is not great. So theoretically, they are a bubble team. And so Kansas State is right there with them in the RPI. Kansas State is right there with them in conference record. And those two teams play this weekend in Manhattan. So I'll just be very interested to see Kansas State's offense against Texas Tech's pitching. I think that is one area where I think Kansas State can really exploit some things because we've talked about it. Runes like, Mason Molina, like a solid pitcher, but he's not one of those guys that's going to start against you on the road and you're like, oh man, we gotta face that guy. And so I just think Kansas State, when you look at Nick Goodwin, you look at Kalen Culpepper, Cash Ridgely, that's a really solid top of the lineup. So Kansas State's offense will be the key to the weekend. And again, that's a huge series of circle from a bubble standpoint, at large standpoint. It could have massive ramifications.
Fitzy.
Player of interest here for me, guys. Did you see what Tyson Neighbors did in the first game against Irvine last week? Came out of the bullpen, gave him 3 hitless innings of relief with 7 strikeouts, which that'll play.
He's electric too. He's up to like 96.
He is super electric. He's really, really exciting. I think he's got 7 saves now. He's just like such a weapon for them in those late game situations. And as we saw, he can really shorten the game by himself by 3 innings, just like that. So if they've got the lead after 6, kind of like their chances with that guy lurking back there.
Yeah.
How about Tyson Neighbors, boys? You got to look up his numbers. 0.89 ERA, 18 appearances. He's given up 11 hits in 30 innings. Guys are hitting 108. It's 55 punch outs and 7 walks. Just absolute dominance.
Mm-hmm.
Incredible.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go same genre. I'm gonna match your neighbors. Fitzy, I'm gonna give you a Brandon Beckel. Like he's a guy. If when Tech got swept by Texas, if I'm not mistaken, Beckel was out.
He was suspended. Right? It changed the whole dynamic of that series.
Yeah, and they got walked off at least twice in that series, like in that little bad spell for them. So anyway, yeah, Brandon Beckel. I think both teams are similar in that, like you said, kind of like if they figure out the pitching, they're going to be in it to win it. Like both offenses are legit.
And that's a real slide piece that Beckel's got. That's really the weapon for that guy. I mean, it's he can throw it any time. It's coming, and you still might not hit it.
Well, and Rudes, didn't you say Bo Blessy's back this weekend too?
He's been back, but like limited. I think he's been back and pitched like once or twice. So yeah, that's another big arm that is going to be important for them. My turn, correct?
Yeah.
Yep.
Fitzy, I'm the guy that's just in the box, ready to hit. Like I'm not adjusting crap. I'm just standing there staring at the pitcher, like, let's go, cowboy. Let's like there's no nonsense. I'm not even looking at my coach for signs. I'm just ready to rake. That said, give me UCLA at Stanford, right? We're in Palo Alto for that. Fitzy, you're going, right?
I am going.
To LA or to Palo Alto? Where are we going?
It's Palo Alto.
Oh, very schwanky. The any caviar in your future this weekend, or what is D1Baseball per diem account for caviar?
There may be a round at TPC Harding Park on the docket. I'm just
gonna like that
out there.
Yeah, very good. So this is interesting because Stanford is the most talented roster on the West Coast, but by their standard, which is back-to-back Omaha, I feel like they've been pretty sleepy this year. Like they've been, I feel like Stanford's best baseball is ahead of them if we're going to see it. Like there's no guarantee we're going to see it this year. And, but are they talented? And Quinn Matthews is runaway Pac-12 pitcher of the year. UCLA still without Cody Schreier. That might be a permanent situation. Can Deuce Gerson be Deuce?
Gorson?
What the heck is? What is it? Gorson, right?
Is it Gorson? I think it's Gorson.
Yeah, Gorson. Gerson is area. I trip on area Gerson's name so bad. Now I'm calling Deuce Gorson that as well.
Okay, Seif.
Yeah, jeez. Seif, is there a support group I can join? So anyway, UCLA is a little shorthanded, but they do have Kyle Karros back. UCLA, I also feel like their best baseball's ahead of them. It's an interesting series. It's two teams that I think are better than they've played, and they've played fine. Like I think they're both Omaha teams on the right day. I'm really curious to see who shows up for both clubs, because they're interesting postseason teams. Player of interest, Fitzy.
Yeah, there's so many. I'm really excited about this series because I agree with you. Like when I booked this series, I was like, oh, this is gonna be the series of the year in the West. These feel like the two best teams, the two most legitimate Omaha contenders in the West. And now we get there, and it's like, yeah, Stanford's kind of hovering, like you said, just kind of hovering around the top 10. UCLA is now just dropped out of the top 25, and it's like, oh man, like it's not quite the marquee series I hoped, but nonetheless, there's so much talent on the field. I'm excited to see Malachi Knight. John Vaughns, these guys for UCLA, they're just so tooled up and physical that I think Knight had a pretty good weekend against the Trojans. I think he's swinging it pretty well right now. So I don't know. I mean, there's so much young talent on that team, and I haven't seen those guys in a while, and just looking forward to getting a look at it with my own eyeballs.
Like it, Kendall.
Well, after Aaron picked everybody on both rosters,
I didn't say anyone at Stanford.
Okay, well, UCLA's whole roster. I'll go with Quinn Matthews. He's kind of the tone setter for them. 10 starts and has put up great numbers so far this year. So I just think when you look at Stanford overall, he's a tone setter. So give me Quinn Matthews. It's pretty easy for me.
Yep. Boys, we're missing. I'm going to give you a couple pairs of names. Like there are we have all these verbal doppelgangers in college baseball this year, right? So we have Carson Ligon and Carson Liggett. We have Cade Keeler and Tate Keener, right? Cade Keeler, the pitcher for Campbell, Tate Keener, the pitcher for Louisville. We now have Aria Garrison, the beat reporter for Vandy, and Deuce Gorson, the shortstop and middle of the order bat for UCLA. I feel like there's another one that is very difficult to tangle with, but I can't.
You know what I'm actually looking forward to this weekend, actually, is I was just kind of going through because I was wanting to learn more about Matt Scott. The talented freshman for Stanford, and I'm going through our archives, and like the only thing that has been written about him on our site is in the fall report. So I'm actually really looking forward to Aaron's report on Matt Scott, because I've heard he's really good, but I don't know a lot about him.
Yeah, we had heard some reports earlier this year that he might be their best guy. I mean, he's very talented.
For sure. I'm looking forward to that.
Nick Dugan's the other guy, but he's Nick Dugan's a freshman too, right? He's the other, although the ERA not good. Oh boy. Okay. 32 innings though.
Look at Ryan Bruno's ERA.
Bad.
Like if you put those final couple innings of the Texas State game, the regional final, on a video, showed it to somebody and said, "Hey, what do you think his ERA is in the next year?" There's no way you would guess over 6.
We don't talk about Bruno's ERA.
Oh Jesus!
Every time you walk right into it every time.
Minus 85 on the nonsense tracker.
Fitzy's going in with a deficit.
Nonsense tracker.
He's going to have to play up just to catch up. It's like you shot an 80 on Thursday in a pro tournament, Fitzy, and now you just got to fire at pins.
That's right. Coming at it. Is it my turn?
No, I did. Yeah, your turn. I did Stanford, UCLA. Go ahead, Fitzy.
I'm going to keep it out west. Arizona State, Oregon, I think is a super fun series, guys. This is, again, two teams that are very much in the mix to host now. I mean, and Arizona State is a little bit like Kentucky, where their conference schedule was backloaded. And so we kept thinking like, oh yeah, this is a nice story, but they're probably going to drop back. You look at this series. Well, they just won the series against Oregon State, and it was a hard fought series. They really showed, I thought, a lot of toughness and guts and all that good stuff. And now they go on the road and take on, it is in Eugene, right? No. Yeah, it is in Eugene.
Yeah, Eugene. That's right.
It is. So now they go on the road and face the Ducks, and the Ducks are playing well. They won a couple straight series here, Stanford and at Cal. It does feel like that Oregon offense that had gotten off to a little bit of a slow start has started to kind of find itself, and their pitching, I think, has proven better than we thought. And anyway, I just think it's a really neat matchup here with a lot on the line, because again, right now we have the Ducks hosting Arizona State, not too far out. If the Sun Devils win this thing on the road, then you really got to take them seriously as a host, and that RPI will surely jump.
No doubt.
Kendall, player of interest.
Well, first of all, it's really interesting. Just I wrote about Arizona State a couple weeks ago. I was watching a couple of their games over the weekend, And like one of the things that Willie Bloomquist mentioned when I talked to him was like, hey, we've got to get off to better starts. And like they didn't get off to better starts over the weekend against Oregon State, but they still found a way to win. I'm just really impressed with that. Had you told me coming in the season that like the two best coaching jobs of the year would be Mike Gambino and Willie Bloomquist, I don't think I would have liked your odds. So give them a lot of credit for that. But I think when you look at Arizona State and Oregon this weekend, I think Jay Stoffel for me is the key. Because I think when you look at Arizona State, I think they're one of those clubs that really builds off momentum. Like if they can get going offensively, I think they're really difficult to slow down. And so I think Jay Stoffel just kind of, again, like we mentioned with Quinn Matthews, like Stoffel has been very good. And his ability to kind of set the tone for the weekend, I think, is going to be the key in this series. I think if they can keep Arizona State's offense from just getting in a groove at all, then I think they're winning this series.
Kendall, I like that pick. He was on my list. You kind of sniped me there, but I'll just Arizona State's counter, right? Like if this is going to be, I think a slugfest with Oregon at Oregon does not behoove Arizona State. Like that's not in their wheelhouse. That's what Oregon wants. So Ross Dunn and Christian Curtis have to be better. You know, like they've both been really good at times, but both have struggled to throw enough strikes at times. And so Ross Dunn and Christian Curtis, I think, have got to be good. The other name to keep an eye on is does Ryan Campos return from that oblique injury? I just feel like ASU's on. Yeah, they're on borrowed time without him, if I'm being very blunt. By the way, Fitzy, your pick for Luke Keeschel as Pac-12 Player of the Year is fortuitous. Like he is on an absolute heater right now.
And by the way, my pick of Jay Stoffel in our preseason fantasy draft also looking pretty good. Fabulous Fit Dogs. He's the ace for the Fabulous.
I gotta go back and look at how's my roster looking.
And I got him for $15 too. It was a steal.
By the way, I was just, since we're talking about the offenses and the ability to get rolling offensively, I was looking at the weather in Eugene because it can be cold even this time of year. 85 degrees on Friday in Eugene. How about that?
Yeah.
80 degrees on Saturday.
Wow.
So that's shocking. It's Arizona State weather.
The Fabulous Fit Dogs. The Rune Dogs we lost 2 players when Nolan McLean went down. So
I got to go look at I don't even remember who I drafted.
I remember paying full freight for Vance Honeycutt. He's going to go on a tear to finish, though. I'm just telling you.
At least I picked John Spikern as my breakout player of the year.
Spike
Whoops.
Well, happens to the best of us. Whose turn to pick Kendall, your turn to pick a series.
Okay. Who have we not talked about yet?
Do you need to look it up on weather.com or what?
No. I'm just looking. Hey, dude, I cover all my bases. I look at the weather. So it's like 3D chess.
You only have 5 tabs though. How can you look at anything?
That's what I'm saying.
That's why I lose things because I close tabs out so I can go to another tab. I'll go with Duke and Virginia. Virginia was a team that sitting here 4 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, we looked at and said, oh man, slam dunk top 8. I mean, you can make an argument they're a top 3 team in the country. Well, all of a sudden, you know, as I hate to give him credit, but as Aaron kind of predicted, like Virginia's pitching's kind of settled back in the pack a little bit, and Virginia's been scuffling on the weekend, you know, coming off that series sweep at Notre Dame. And so when you look at that series with Duke coming to town, that's a big one for Virginia to kind of stay in the mix for that top 8. They were still won this week. A series loss, they're out. And honestly, the series win by Duke would put them at 14-9 in the ACC. All of a sudden, that puts Duke in a position to potentially be a top 8. So give Chris Pollard a lot of credit. You know, that we've talked about, you know, them not having Jonathan Santucci, and they just continue to win. And they're getting it done both pitching wise and certainly from an offensive standpoint, as we saw tonight in their midweek game.
Yeah, no Santucci or Luke Fox. We forget they lost him in the fall.
Yeah,
I mean, that was, and you know, I kind of wrote about that this week. If you would have drawn up a successful season for Duke back in September, it would have been, oh well, we've got Santucci and Fox. We're going to roll out these 2, you know, premium left-handers every Friday and Saturday, and kind of take our chances after that. I haven't had either one of those guys, and they're just rolling. And it's like, oh, we got these like 5th-year, you know, transfer guys from these small schools, and we're just going to use them as openers. Here's Jason White, just a nondescript righty, you know. Here's Alex Gow, breaking ball guy, you know, and then here's Higgins, a sinker baller on Sunday. We're just, you know, whatever. We'll get 3 innings, maybe 4, you know, and then we'll piece it together in the bullpen. It's just such a fascinating formula. I mean, it's frankly like we always talk about the Mississippi State 2013 model where they use the openers and then here comes Ross Mitchell. But like, these guys are probably have even less pedigree than the starter. Like there's no Trevor Fitz, or whatever. Like there's not really a guy that they haven't had one pitcher go more than 5 innings all year. And so it's just wild, but like their bullpen is legit. And so my player of interest here, I've talked about James Talon before, the lefty. My player of interest here is going to be Malvern Prep's own Fran O'Shell the third.
Go Friars.
Dog. Go Friars. He's been awesome.
Suck up.
It's like 97, 98 mile an hour. He's been dominant. Him and Talon are one of the best bullpen duos in the country. And that's one of the things that makes Duke so hard to beat.
Yep. Player of interest. I mean, Alex Mooney's always a player of interest. Steven Schock is always a player of interest in this series, Virginia alum. Fitzy, because Virginia better than the rest of us. The player of interest for me in the series is this Virginia rotation has me really confused because I looked up their numbers expecting to see carnage, but there's no carnage. Like Jack O'Connor, 3.18 ERA. Brian Edgington, 3.13 ERA. Connolly Early, 3.26 ERA. Nick Parker, 4.54. And they've made 10, 9, and 9 starts. So I understand that Virginia does not play a ferocious non-conference schedule, and they have obliterated their non-conference schedule. They are 21-0 in non-conference games. So are some of those numbers buoyed by that? I don't know. The one thing I would identify in the statistics for those guys is, as a group, they are barely averaging 5 innings per start, which is weird that we're so late in the season and we're just not getting very deep in games. It's not like Virginia's got this outrageous bullpen that you just want to get the starter out of the game and get to the bullpen. Their bullpen's fine, but it's not that bullpen. So all that said, I'm really curious to pay more attention to the Virginia rotation this weekend and see what that's all about. So,
but by the way, speaking of Duke, as we record this on Wednesday night, I don't know. I'd have to look and see what opponents did and whatnot. But their RPI's actually up 5 spots today. They're up to 12.
Wow.
I mean, if they win this series, they're easily in the top 10.
So that's amazing. Yep. All right, we got 2 more series to go, boys, and let's go. I will take North Carolina at Virginia Tech. I'll leave the Fun Belt to Kendall. North Carolina, Virginia Tech. It kind of feels like 2 teams going opposite directions. North Carolina, maybe that's rock bottom for them, getting swept at home by BC last weekend. They're 1-5 in their last 6 ACC games because they lost a home series to Miami as well. And, you start looking at the North Carolina resume and that series over Duke, and I guess the series over Notre Dame feels like the highlights, but neither of those were sweeps. For Virginia Tech, after getting off to a heinous start, going 2-7 in their first 3 series, much better. They've won 3 out of 4 series since then, including Virginia, splitting with Duke, Georgia Tech, Florida State. I mean, I get it. Georgia Tech and Florida State are not their vintage selves, but anyway, Jack Hurley, he's going to be in the conversation for ACC Player of the Year, as we discussed the other night. Drew Hackenberg seems like he's been better than he was earlier in the year. North Carolina is just a mystery to me. I don't get it. I love the roster. I don't love the way they're playing. Outside of Hunter Stokely and Mac Horvath, I don't love the way North Carolina's playing. They are struggling on the front end. Fitzy, player of interest in this.
Yeah, and I do believe that Vance Honeycutt kind of found a little something this past weekend, and their offense was struggling, but Honeycutt was getting it going. And so I think that, to me, he had 3 straight multi-hit games. So that to me caught my eye because that's so huge. If they're going to make a run, if they're going to get really hot like they did at the end of last year, that was when Honeycutt was also really, really hot. And if he can keep it going and really like become this dynamic force of nature in their lineup. I mean, there's nobody in the country. Well, there's very few people in the country, that can match his combination of raw power, elite 80 grade speed, and frankly, like double plus defense in center field as well. Like he's a legitimate like future Gold Glover. Like, I've heard scouts talk about him like Jackie Bradley Jr. is one of the best defensive center fielders of this era. He's a real game changer. And so if they can get him back and build off this past weekend, maybe that changes things for North Carolina.
Kendall.
Yeah, I'll just point to the big guy for Virginia Tech and Drew Hackenberg. I mean, you look back at last weekend against Florida State, and he might have had his best start of the year. I can't imagine he's had many better starts than three runs in a complete game performance, 12 strikeouts, no walks. So I'll just circle the ace as the key to the weekend. He obviously was very good last week, and he'll need to be good again this weekend.
Kendall, I think the last series is the Fun Belt series. Does that look right to you guys?
I think that's Aaron's series, isn't it?
If you want it, Fitzy, take it.
He's a Monarch homer, so
I don't know whose turn it is. Yeah, I'll take this one. Sure. Texas State, Old Dominion. Again, big series with bubble ramifications here. You've got two teams that are, I think, both in the 50s in the RPI right now. Yeah, they're both back-to-back, 54 and 55. They have the same record in the league, 10-8. Texas State probably in slightly better shape because they've got more quality wins. Old Dominion just 2-6 against top 50. So if Old Dominion is going to make a run at an at-large bid, it's got to be now. It's got to be now. They have to win this series. They need some more, higher end wins. It feels like when they've had opportunities, they had Coastal Carolina and Southern Miss at home in back-to-back weeks. That's a real opportunity there if they could win at least one of those series. Instead, they lose them both at home. Now they get another home series against one of the top contenders in the league at Texas State, and it's do or die time for the Monarchs.
Kendall, player of interest.
Yeah, I'm just going to go with the two-headed monster for Texas State on the mound, and Levi Wells and Zeke Wood. I mean, these are two guys that are obviously supremely talented, especially Wells. But they've both of them been a little bit back and forth all season long. Obviously Wells is banged up a few weeks ago. But those guys against an ODU team who always hits, especially at home, they're going to be the key to the weekend for Texas State because I think Texas State obviously can hit, and they can hit at a high clip. They can hit for power. But they need those two starters to really rise up this weekend against a team that can certainly hit in the Monarchs.
I like it. Whenever I think of Old Dominion, I think of Jake Tyser. I'm pulling up their conference stats though, and conference-wise, he's still been good, but it's way less home runs in conference. Only 5 home runs. But he's such a big. I wonder if Hunter Fitzgerald, their other first baseman type, is. He's played 18 conference games. Just the numbers are not as dynamic. I would say those two guys. It feels like if Old Dominion's going to do their thing, it's got to be led by the offense. And so, give me those two more famous position players for Old Dominion: Jake Tyser and Hunter Fitzgerald.
I like it.
That's it. Hey boys, I gotta. That's it. Let me do the one more read, if you will. Blast Baseball. If you're ready to dominate at the plate, Blast Baseball is trusted by more MLB and college teams than any other hitting solution. The Blast sensor attaches to the knob of any bat, provides real-time feedback with every swing. Go to blastmotion.com. Enter the code D1Baseball at checkout to save $10. One other thing is it's a perfect time with 4 weekends left in the regular season. Get yourself a subscription to D1Baseball.com. If you use the code SAVE23 at checkout, you get 20% off. D1Baseball.com, SAVE23 at checkout, 20% off. Also, SEC Extra has got unbelievable stuff. I mean, the website is ablaze. Fitzy, what's your favorite piece that you've written recently?
I've really thought my Duke piece this week was very good. I mean, and part of that is because Chris Pollard he's such a great person to talk to about baseball because his answers are always so thoughtful and it feels like honest and analytical in a way that you don't always get. And so I feel like anytime I talk to Chris Pollard, I'm going to have a good story, and that was kind of the case this week.
That was a great piece. I'll tell you what I liked about it is I'm so skeptical of using that many pitchers per game in college baseball. And he kind of, as they say in the law, in the attorney, in the lawyer profession, he fronted his bad facts. Like he did not run for that. He leaned into it, which I liked very much. Kendall, I've bragged about. Oh, go ahead, Kendall.
No, I was just going to say, as you're listening to this on Thursday, we talked about Texas Tech, Kansas State, Texas State, Old Dominion, some of these bubble races and whatnot. Aaron's piece today on the postseason stock report, will literally give you a breakdown of every national seed race and every at-large race. So if you're wanting more details on that, check that out.
Yep. And if you're not, I'd say the prerequisite to that piece is the piece you wrote, Kendall, on Postseason Buzz, which kind of lets me digest what happened the weekend before and really, put it all together. So
we've got you covered.
We've got you covered. We got you. We ain't done yet.
What were you going to ask me?
I was going to ask you for the name of Postseason Buzz. That's what I was going to ask you. I also wanted to have you say we ain't done yet. Like
we ain't
little,
done yet.
Little Marcus
I
Peters.
said we ain't done yet.
That's the best part of the quote is the I said.
I want to get Tony Vitello to do that whole reenactment for us.
Oh man.
Maybe if they sweep Mississippi State, we can get him to do it.
This is a final thought I have for you guys. And I'm not saying this as to mock anyone because I've felt this pain, but man, like there are a lot of coaches right now who are mentally gassed. Like these seasons have been tumultuous. Gosh, Joe Healy would be proud of me right now. Look at me just chucking a tumultuous in there. Am I getting credit? Is that a good word, Fitzy, or is that a little tired?
That's a B word. That's a B word.
It's fringe average.
But I will say, you bring up a good point.
It's a lot of syllables.
Runes, if you think 10 weeks of this has been crazy, imagine how bonkers with this ball that we have right now, how bonkers regional weekend is going to be.
Yeah.
It is like squeeze play is going to be crazy.
And the best part is we'll have the pitch timer, so it's going to be like, we'll be able to play these crazy games in a reasonable amount of time. Like that's.
I still remember. Was it last year? Well, it might have been 2 years ago. Where like Tennessee hit the walk off in their regional, and like 4 other things happen all at the same time while you're on a squeeze play.
So good. So we can't have a podcast without a Chris from Louisville reference. One of the best moments from squeeze play last year, besides Berkey showing me up with his Easter suit, was or his pastel colored Easter flavored suit.
That was so good.
It was so good, jerk.
It was fire.
Yeah, it was fire. So it was drip. Is that a word? So Oklahoma State loses that heartbreaker to Arkansas, and then the next day they're playing Missouri State. And Missouri State goes up 12-0 in like the third inning.
Yeah.
And Berkey says on the air, hey, that's too early to be up 12-0. They're up like 12-0 in the second inning. And Berkey says that's too early. Like you can't hold a lead like that long. And sure enough, Oklahoma State comes back and wins. Like I think Missouri State was up 10-0 and Oklahoma State came back and won 27-12. Some dude watching squeeze play called his bookie or did whatever and made a major wager. Because you can imagine, you don't have to put a lot of money down on Oklahoma State at that point. They're down 10-0 in the second. He won $4,000 and tweets that at us on Squeeze Play that, hey, Berkey, great call. You helped me win $4,000. And now Berkey's feeling like, well, I'm not up here like promoting gambling people. Like, right? It's like, I don't want people to hear me as like, hey, the life lesson from today is next time you see a team down 10-0, get your checkbook out. That's not the takeaway, but we did have a loyal patron win $4,000.
Oklahoma State had a very stressful postseason last year.
Yeah. Well, and I've been saying that if Coastal Carolina, I mean, I guess if they host or not, but if they host, that's going to be Stillwater Regional Part 2. Like it's going to be a lot. Coastal could win some 22-16 games in the postseason. I could see that happening.
All right, Aaron, I'm going to put you on the spot. So we're instead of the Conway Regional, we're going to call it the Carnage Regional.
Yeah.
Give me the best 2 and 3 seed that would make that the most sloppiest, craziest regional imaginable. Like who can we put in there that would just make that absolutely ridiculous?
No, Old Dominion Sunbelt, they can't go there.
No, like let's think about that. We'll end the pot on that. That's a great question.
Yeah, that is
like we want to make this as nutty as possible.
And NC State would mess that up, right?
NC State. That was one.
NC State would put up a lot of runs.
Or Virginia Tech. What if Virginia Tech gets sent there?
Yeah, I could see that.
We gotta get a 3 seed.
Campbell, we have as a host right now, or not a host?
No, not a host. Yeah, they could certainly score some runs.
That'd be a possibility.
How about ODU?
No, they're both Sunbelt, right?
Oh, right. Yeah.
Now they're both Sunbelt, right?
All right, we'll do. I'll tell you what. We'll do our homework and we'll answer that in next week's pod.
Yep, very good. Fitzy, safe travels out to the West Coast. Are you going to bring your what do we dress differently on the West Coast or just it's
going to be it's going to be cool. I mean, compared to what we're used to. Although it's going to be nice. It's going to be I think in the 60s and maybe around 70, but that's cool for this time of year.
Yeah. You'll see the great Roxy Bernstein and you'll see the great Wes Clements out there.
Yeah. Big Wes.
Big Wes.
Yeah, don't forget your plaid pearl snaps too.
I don't even know what that is.
Your smoking jacket. Do you travel with your smoking jacket?
What is a pearl snap?
I don't know.
You wear pearl snaps.
I don't even know what that is.
It's the shirt that has the little like white buttons that you snap on. Those are pearl snaps.
No, I don't have any of those.
Yes, you do. You wore one in Omaha last year. Absolutely did.
A snap button? I don't have a single snap button in my wardrobe. You're wrong.
That's great.
I'm telling you, take all your clothes to Omaha this year. I'll show you what a pearl snap is.
Oh, that's right. And open all your tabs. Gentlemen, well done. Enjoyed it very much. Safe travels to everyone this weekend. We will catch you next time on the D1